Hey, it's Monday, March 19th. Apparently it's a day for learning.
Yay.
In theory. Test coming up on Friday over mythology. It's also the same day your blue sheet is due, and the crossword if you're wanting to get extra credit or extra B points. Camp Tecumseh stuff is due this week. Money is due this week. Charger Challenge is coming up tomorrow or Wednesday, whichever one it says in front of you. And then, so your 4th 9 weeks grade is officially posted on Skyward, which is just whatever grades you got on the quiz. Then, this is our Charger Challenge list for Wednesday. If you're on there, hopefully you show up. Don't die before then. And then we have the homework, which is due tomorrow, so make sure you are ready for that one, because it's going to be half of your grade, because tomorrow and all that. And then, alright, not her. This one, the story of Heracles. I want to finish out the rest of this story, so we can move on from there. I'm going to talk about how Heracles died, because it's fun and stuff like that.
Yay.
Heracles, contrary to popular belief, did not die from still having an iPad on his desk. That was a completely different thing that caused the death of a different person altogether. Mr. Brovicast, you're so subtle. Thank you. I was going to say the same thing. Heracles, what is his name translated into?
Joy of Hera.
Nicely done. The joy of Hera is mom's way of trying to prevent him from getting killed. Doesn't work. Technically, he doesn't die, but only not because of the name. The first time that Hera tries to kill him?
Baby.
With?
Snake.
The little baby snakes that come over the side and try to do the bitey. He does the squeezy, eye poppy, smacky, smacky. And then he goes on to inherit his father's poor choices, and he makes his first poor choice, which is
Killing his wife.
not killing his family. There's a worse choice than that.
Killing
A teacher, and then the next poor choice?
Killing
Family. Priorities, worse one, and then family's on there. I agree that family's bad. Teacher's worse. And then, why does he kill his family?
He thinks
they're
zombies. But definitely a monster thing. Who's actually responsible for the killing of the family?
Hera.
That's where the Hera thing comes in. And then from there, he runs away and talks to Zeus, and Zeus says, hey, you can make things better by going off and redeeming things from there. How many missions does he have to go on? 10. And he has how many years to do it?
10.
And the problem is, after he gets done with those 10, the gods come back like, hey, we feel you kind of cheated on 2 of them, so we're not going to count them. So you have to add 2 more back on. One of them is the Hydra one we're going to talk about in a moment. And the other one was another one that he had to do. He has to go back and redo those for a total of 12. With those missions, 3 I wanted to touch on of those. A 4th of them we're going to do together. I think that's right, 1/3 of 12. Math. The Nemean line, with that one, what was the bad thing about the Nemean line?
You couldn't
die.
Unbreakable skin.
So how does he kill it if you can't stab him?
Body slam.
Breaks his neck like a James Bond.
Enthusiasm.
And then drops it down from there. Then what does he do with the line after he done kills it?
Punctures it with the lion claws, makes it so smart.
Nicely done. That's where he wears it from there. And then wears it as his armor forever after. And then he goes back to the King Eurystheus, and we get to the second thing he has to do.
Yeah, the Hydra.
Alright, the Hydra. And with the Hydra, what makes the Hydra so scary?
Heads.
Every time you chop off one, yes, it has a head, which is definitely scary. You chop off one head, the 2 heads come back. On top of the fact that it knows how to do math, what also makes it scary?
Acidic blood.
The blood, which plays a big role, is all acidic, so you can choppy, 2 come out and display and displays nasty blood on you like I'm burning, and now there's 2 of you. And because of that, that's where he has a friend come in, where every time he chops off a head, what does his friend do?
Burn.
Comes in there and just insults and is like, you're stupid and you're fat, yo! Wait, not that kind of burning. Sorry, the burn where he has like the big burning torch and tries to put it on top of it and then melts it shut so he gets to the very last immortal head. And what does he do with the immortal head?
Stick it under a rock.
Much like the best Easter egg hunt ever, he then goes and puts it under a rock. Or like when your parents tell you to clean your room and you just take all the clothes and kick them under the bed. It's the same thing, but instead of clothes, imagine it's a head that would eat you alive. But instead of a bed, it's a rock. It's almost the same idea. And he puts it all underneath there. And what does he do with the arrows?
He dips it in blood.
Which come back and play a story later on, the whole blood. The arrows are thought to be so powerful, you don't have to shoot anybody. I can just take an arrow and like walk over to Kirk and like tap. It's like the best magic one. Like I just fall down. It's like magic arrows. And so it's the same type of thing. Hydra-y thing, Matthew-y thing.
Why did the arrows melt?
Because you have certain types of acid that don't only react to like
Skin.
I was going to say biological, but yeah, skin. And so the arrows doesn't melt them if it touches you. It works. I don't know. You know how hydras are. And so at this point, he then goes, ooh, can I talk about the 5th labor with you guys?
Yeah, that's really
Oh, yeah.
And he has for the 5th labor. I get to tell stories about poo. And so you have the 1,000 horses, and for 100 years, and the quick timeout. Logically, I'm not sure how you have a stable that had that much horse poo in it, because if it was 10 feet deep, where the horses swim through it, it just doesn't really make sense. I mean, it seems like that's just boggles the mind. But
Maybe they like just dug
it's the
their
same
own
type of
little
story that we
tunnels.
killed the sky, so I guess we just accept these things. And how does he manage to clean out all the horse poo?
He
makes the rivers go into it.
Rivers.
Shows the fact that he's all smart and the rivers go through, and the fact that it washes all out, and he's like, no hands, and then cleans out all the poo, and life is good. I mean, that's as much as life can be good dealing with.
That's good, LG.
At this point, he also has to do other things where he has to eventually go up and talk to Atlas, and this is where he gets to free Prometheus as part of his story. He's like, hey, look, there's a guy trapped on the mountain. And he's like, oh, that's sad. Releases him. Then he has to go down to the underworld, makes friends with this Hades guy, and has to carry the dog on his back, which is another big, long story. But eventually, finishes all 12 labors, goes to talk to the gods, and they go, hey, you're forgiven. You've done all of these things. You're free to go on with your life. All of your past sins are gone. He ends up marrying a girl that he fell in love with during the missions, that he couldn't marry at the time. He's like, hey, I like you. You're a hottie. We should spend time together, but I've got a deadline. When he gets done, he goes back and finds her. They fall in love, get married. They decide to go on a honeymoon. Quick time out on the honeymoon. Do you guys know what Centaur is once again? The half man, half
Horse.
half
likes
man,
to
half
party.
horse creature. It's going to play a role in my story.
Wait
Focus.
I have a question about that.
Ooh, what's your question?
Okay, so if it's a centaur, then where are the lungs? Is it in the horse lungs or is it in the human?
They had 2 sets of lungs.
What?
They actually had 3 sets of lungs. They kept 1 set of lungs in the feet because they never fell off. I don't know. They're make-believe creatures. You have to write one a letter when it writes back.
They're
what it
make
says.
believe.
Just those. Not all of them. Just this one. The other ones are real. You can tell because of the blonde hair. No one really has blonde hair. And so they're on their honeymoon, and they're going along through the woods when Heracles and Mrs. Heracles II, because this is his second wife. What happened in the first one?
He's
dead.
And then he's like, hey, this is my second wife. She's like, what happened to the first one? He's like, not talking about that. And so they get married, and on their honeymoon, they come to this big river. They're having trouble getting across it. And Heracles goes, hey, I'm strong enough that I can swim across. She goes, good for you. How do I get across? He's like, oh, how about I pick you up and I throw you? So she's like, how about not? She's like, let's come up with option number 2. And while they're arguing back and forth, because that's what married people do, up comes the centaur. And the centaur goes, hey, can I help you out? And Heracles describes what the problem is. Like, yeah, I'd love to have you help me out. The issue is we're trying to get across the river, but she doesn't want me to throw her, women. And he's like, can you help? And the centaur goes, yeah. How about you have her jump on my back, wrap her arms around me, I can paddle across, horsey paddle, and then I will take her across, and then you can swim across, and everything will be okay. Heracles tells him, very nice of you. She goes ahead, jumps on the centaur's back, and he goes ahead and takes her across. During this journey going across, they're chatting back and forth. She's holding on to him. And he's like, hey, you're a really nice person. She goes, thank you. He's like, you're also really attractive. She's like, kind of creepy, but thank you. He's like, I think really you're too good for Heracles. And she's like, that's a compliment, thank you. He's like, you're so much better than him. You should probably be with me. And she goes, now you're getting creepy again. And he goes, hey, when they get on their side, he's like, I think I'm going to take you for my own because you're incredibly hot and I'm not good at talking to women. So he wraps his arms around her legs, takes off running. She begins screaming, being wife-napped, and shrieking her arms up there. Heracles sees her being wife-napped and decides he has to stop it. But he's way on the other side of the river. So how does he stop her?
Shoot an arrow.
Shoots an arrow. Pulls out his special bow and arrow, sees the centaur running, was like, whooshoo, fires the arrow, and
It hits his wife.
I know you guys thought that was going to happen. It doesn't. For once, it finally goes the right way. Does not hit his wife, because that would have been really sad. Ends up hitting the centaur, tumbles over and over. She goes flying off to the side and breaks her neck and dies.
Nice.
Just kidding, doesn't happen. She goes flying off to the side, gets back up, runs back over to the centaur and starts, he's like, you're a bad horsey man, and starts kicking him. He's like, ow, stop it, lady. He's like, you just tried to woman nap me. And so he apologizes and goes, hey, I've made a poor choice. I apologize. And she goes, well, you deserve it. He goes, can I make it up to you? She goes, you're dying, so probably not. He goes, how about this? It is a little known secret that centaur blood is also an aphrodisiac. She goes, really? An aphrodisiac was supposedly a potion that was created by Aphrodite herself. And if it's a potion created by Aphrodite, it'd be a potion that makes you fall in love. He goes, here's how centaur blood works. Little known fact. If centaur blood touches you, whoever you're thinking of, when the blood touches you, you fall deeply and madly in love with them. So here's how I'll make it up to you. If you ever fear that your man might fall out of love with you, use some of my blood to then make him fall back in love with you. And he says, do you have a water bottle? And she's like, yeah. He's like, take some of my blood, put it in there, but don't let the blood touch you. Because if it touches you, you're going to be thinking of me, and you're going to fall in love with my hunky self, and I'm going to die, and that'd be awful. He's like, oh, that's so nice. And he's like, here, catch some of my blood. He's like, that's kind of icky. But she gets some of his blood, puts a little cap on it, and then holds on to it. He goes, when you use it, whenever you think that he's not being faithful to you, then hopefully you'll forgive me, and I can move on. He's like, you're a nice horseman. He's like, you're and then falls down dead. Thus, he dies. Heracles comes running up, and he's like, hey, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, horsey man is dead. And he's like, kicks him also. And they're like, all right. And they continue on from there. You're not going to make me charge you points, right? What's up, Seth?
So I'm kind of questioning logic right now.
Yeah.
So that horse guy, he's got an arrow in his chest, but he was running away with her, so his chest would be facing the opposite.
It bounced off a tree. He ricocheted. Right. Because, you know, it's a bank shots, how pool was actually created. Billiards was created this very day. It's kind of weird. So now, Heracles and his wife live the next several years quite happily. Him and Mrs. Heracles II. Till one day, he goes off on this big, long, adventure-y thing. And he's out there conquering this other country, and rumors start to trickle back that in one of the countries he conquered, there's this really hot princess, and rumors come back that he and this hot princess like each other. And so Mrs. Heracles II gets worried and decides this is the time to make sure that he loves her. So she gets out this special potion, and she pours the potion all over a brand new set of clothing for her. She's like, think of me, and pours it all over the clothing. She's like, don't touch the clothing, and then folds it back up, writes him a little letter. Dear hunky Heracles, I love you so much. Think of me while you wear this, and may everything turn out right. XOXO, Mrs. Heracles II. And then she mails it out to him, and eventually travels up to where he is. By the way, turns out he's not being unfaithful. Humans are just awful people and like to spread rumors. And he was actually being faithful and not channeling his father. So when he gets this thing, he's like, oh, my wife is so adorable. I love her so much. And he gets down, he's like, oh, it's just my size. And he strips down, he puts on the clothing. He's like, I love my woman. She's so, ah! And starts screaming and falls down to the ground, writhing in pain, rips off the clothing, and turns out his skin is slowly starting to melt off of his body. Rewind, because it turns out the centaur did this thing that we call lying. Because when the centaur got shot with the arrow, he realized it was not a normal arrow. There was something on the arrow, which was the Hydra blood. And that's why he wanted to make sure that the girl didn't touch it, and he figures he gets his ultimate revenge. He's up in the centaur, the heck, and like, ah ha ha, revenge! And this ends up a normal person. This would be enough to kill them. You would put on like, get horse, oh God! And you just go right down and be done. But Heracles, being half Zeus, hits the ground, writhes around, rips off all the clothing, his skin all bubbly and melting. He's like, it hurts so much, but I can't die because I'm so strong. But not strong enough to get better. He stays in this form for about a week, writhing around, not being able to get any better. Message given this gets back to his wife, Mrs. Heracles II. And like, hey, did you hear that his wife sent him this outfit that eventually poisons his skin and makes him be in so much pain he's cursing everything? Mrs. Heracles II doesn't take this well, ends up committing suicide, jumping off a cliff. And she's like, I love my husband and I made a poor choice. And ends up dying. Word from that gets back to Heracles and he's like, I give up. No more point in me living either. I can't fight it. Heracles decides to commit suicide also. It's like the weirdest version of Romeo and Juliet ever. And so he also decides to commit suicide. But the problem is, being half God is not an easy thing to do. So he's like, you know what? I need friends to help me do this. Because friends help you make really bad choices. And so he goes and gets 6 of his friends together and gives each one of them one of his special Hydra arrows. And he goes, what I'm going to have you do is all 6 of you are going to shoot me with arrows at the exact same time. I'm going to stand in the middle of this giant bonfire while you shoot me. And all of you shooting me at the same time is going to have these special arrows hitting me, the special Hydra poison hitting me, and the burning hitting me, and all of these things hitting me at all the exact same time is finally enough to kill me. And all of that happening finally causes Heracles to die. Heracles then goes down to the underworld. Hera actually feels a little bit guilty about all this. Goes down to confront him. And she's like, hey, Heracles. He's like, hey, how are you doing? She's like, huh. Funny story. So remember your first wife? He's like, yeah, I have no idea. I apologize in the first place. She's like, yeah, about that. Here's the funny part. I made you do that. I kind of cursed you, made you see him as monsters. That's kind of all my fault. Funny, right? He's like, no, that's not funny at all. She's like, okay, twisted sense of humor. My apologies. Allow me to make it up to you. She brings him up to Mount Olympus and says, because it was my fault, you get to live on Mount Olympus with all of us. And she allows him to come up there and live with all the gods, leave the underworld. On top of that, she goes, you also get to marry one of my daughters. And he gets to get married for the 3rd time. And this one is the daughter by the name of Hebe, the one that was the cupbearer. He gets to marry her and live happily ever after on Mount Olympus, unless you're thinking about Mrs. Heracles II or Mrs. Heracles I or his children, who remain in the underworld rotting and dead forever, because apparently the gods have issues. Tomorrow we'll talk about more gods with issues. Our last story. Take off. We're done.